He's chill. What's up, Jay? How you doing, man?
You know what it is, Tone? Beginning of the week, playoffs. We got a lot of good stuff today, man.
Did someone say playoffs?
Yeah.
I'm in. All right. We've got a mail drop, got a couple really good questions in mail drop. Mm-hmm. We're going to go through each NBA playoff series, kind of where they are today and what we see moving forward. But first, it's part 3 of our multi-part greatest franchise of all time playoff tournament. We did the top bracket of the East, the top bracket of the West. We're now going to do the bottom bracket. And I don't say bottom, it's because it's at the bottom. It's not that they're the bottom. I call it East 2. We've got the Magic and Bulls, Bucks and Calves, Pacers, Pistons, and the Celtics with a bye. So let me just, because the Celtics, listen, this one's going to be hard. I'm going to give you the 6 names on the list. There's one already that I see that I don't like. But, okay, Celtics, here we go. Bob Cousy, John Havlicek, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Bill Russell, Paul Pierce.
Tone, I've always had a difficult time with putting Paul Pierce ahead of a dude who started on 10 championship teams and won.
That's the name that I have the problem with.
I've always had a problem with Paul Pierce being ahead of a dude in Sam Jones who started on 10 championship teams and averaged almost 20 a game on each of those teams. I've always had a problem with that. Always. And I always will have a problem with that. As good as Paul Pierce is, I always had a problem with that, and I always will have a problem with that. Always.
So, shall we switch him for Sam Jones?
Yes. I have
absolutely.
No problem with that.
Let's do that. So we got Bob Cousy, John Havlicek, Hondo, Larry Legend, Kevin McHale. Can I pause on Kevin McHale for a second? Someone tried to tell me that Kevin McHale wouldn't average 10 points and 10 rebounds in today's NBA. And he said, show me a non-shooting, non-athletic big that's putting up 10 and 10. And I literally pulled a name out of a hat and I said, I don't know, Jakob Poeltl. And their response was, well, his parents played volleyball. And I kind of went, what does that have to do with it? He shoots 60% from the field. I said, yeah, 90% of his shots are 0 to 3 feet. He better shoot 60%. Well, that means something. I said, no, it doesn't. I said, DeAndre Jordan shoots 67% from the field because they're all dunks. I said, so there's a non-shooting, he shot 1 3-pointer this season.
Right.
Now he made it 1,000%. Right. But I was like, so how do you think a guy who, well, his nickname was the Black Hole because when the ball went into him, he never kicked it out again. You can say that about a lot of players. However, I said, who had better footwork? Who had better fundamental? I couldn't understand that. Like, have you just never seen him play? Like, what is the Kevin McHale hate? Where's it coming from?
And a lot of that tone comes from just being set in your ways when, especially young people, when they haven't seen people that are before their era, they haven't seen these people, so they automatically believe you have no shot if you played today, or if you. Number one, Kevin McHale is a lot more athletic than you give him credit for. That's number one. Number two, I felt the same way, Tone, when I was 16, 17 years old. I wish you would try to tell me that Elgin Baylor was better than Dominique Wilkins. I would have fought you tooth and nail on that. That's, of course, until I went and did my homework and found out who Elgin Baylor was. And I was like, wait a minute, this guy was awesome. I should probably pay more attention to what I'm looking at. So pay more attention to what's going on here. Now, Kevin McHale, Tone, I mean, give me a break. Kevin McHale said it himself. There's no way Draymond Green could cover me. He said that. And he's absolutely right. There's no way that Draymond Green could do anything with him. No way.
I trust what the players say. This is going to sound blasphemous to some people, but I trust what they say about this much. And here's why. Because Kevin McHale has to say he couldn't guard me. You know what Draymond would say? He couldn't score on me.
Right.
He couldn't score on me.
That's part of it.
Right. That's part of it. So that's why, I get into these arguments a lot too, where it's like, well, this player said that, and that player said. I said, listen, players are human beings too. They have their own opinions, biases, motives, right? Isaiah Thomas will have you thinking that Michael Jordan was trash. I think that's more personal than on the court.
Yeah.
Right? Like Gilbert Arenas, no one in the 80s or 90s could play today.
He's telling us, Gilbert Arenas,
you're pushing a narrative, right?
Yeah, Gilbert Arenas telling us how the Grant Hill was the prototype, and he was torching Scottie Pippen. He averaged 22 a game, 22 and 8. Give me a break, man. In the 14 games that they played against the Bulls, he averaged 22 points, 8 rebounds. Give me a break. Don't make it sound like he was averaging 40 because he wasn't.
No, that's nice. Like, and I like Grant Hill, but 22 and 8 is nice, but it's not. He's not dropping 50.
No.
So
3 times, Tone. 3 times he went over 25 against the Bulls in that championship run. Just 3. That's it. But he's torching them, though.
There you go. So the Celtics, get back to the Celtics. They get a bye. Why? Because they have 17 championships, tied for the most in NBA history. So they're getting a bye. Yep. So the first matchup we're going to go with, let's do Pacers and Pistons.
Okay.
And I'll give you their lineups and see if we want to make the Pistons.
It's going to be tougher than what you think, Tone, with the Pistons. But I haven't even heard the lineup. But
no, but you're right. Mm-hmm. All right. So Pistons. The original, the OG Isaiah Thomas. Mm-hmm. I just call him Zeke. I don't know why that nickname seems to have gone away, but it's a great way to between the new little Isaiah and Zeke.
Right.
So Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, speaking of Grant Hill, Bob Lanier. I don't like this one. Andre Drummond, I would replace with Dennis Rodman, and Vinnie Johnson, the microwave.
Okay, well, number one, Vinny got to come off the team, and Dave Bing got to go on the team. That's
Dave Bing, yes.
Dave Bing absolutely has to go on the team. That's number one. And when I think about
74th, if I may, ranked by ESPN as the 74th greatest player of all time.
I think he finished twice. I think he finished second twice in league MVP votes. Dave Bing was hell to deal with. So he's absolutely an all-time great Piston. And I'm having a difficult time with Adrian Dantley not being on the team. I'm having a difficult time with that.
But who does he replace?
Yeah.
And would you agree with me on taking Drummond off and putting Rodman in?
Yes, I got no problem. Dennis Rodman's jersey's retired. They when they hang your jersey up, you're one of the best to ever do it there. No doubt about that. So
I don't believe in retiring jerseys. Okay, so let's go Isaiah Thomas. Let's go. What a team that would have been if that bad boy Pistons team would have had Grant Hill on it at the small forward. Woo. All right, so Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Grant Hill, Bob Lanier, Dennis Rodman, and Dave Bing is our new lineup for the Pistons. Pacers, Mark Jackson, Reggie Miller, Paul George, Jermaine O'Neal, Rick Smits, and I would change this one, Danny Granger. I would change for Ron Artest.
And I'm taking off Rick Smits, and Mel Daniels should definitely be on that team.
Okay.
Absolutely. Mel Daniels should definitely be on that all-time great Pacers team. So, but I look at that Pistons team, and I'm looking at them just defensively. Jermaine O'Neal is awesome defensively. Artest is awesome defensively. But that Pistons team defensively, I think that they would just clamp down, and I think they would dominate Indiana.
I'm sorry. What is his name now? Is it Meta World Peace or is it Meta World?
It's Meta World. He's not Ron. It's not Ron. I'm sorry. It's Meta World. It's Meta World.
Because I thought he changed it to I thought he had changed it to something Panda at some point too. So I don't.
Oh my God.
I always want to give people listen. You change your name. I want to call you by your right name.
Right.
Like I would never call Kareem Louis Alcindor. I would never call Muhammad Ali Cassius. Like I don't. You change your name. You change your name. Right. So Mark Jackson. So we're gonna go Mark Jackson, Reggie Miller, Paul George, Jermaine O'Neal, Mel Daniels. And Meta World Peace.
Was Mark Jackson better as a Pacer? Was he better than Vern Fleming? I don't know. I'm not sure. I can't say with 100% certainty.
I think it's close enough that I'm going to just go with who's on the list.
Yeah.
All right. So if you have that lineup, Jackson, Miller, George, O'Neal, Daniels, going up against Thomas, Dumars, Hill, Lanier, Rodman, I think they might kill each other. It might go 6 games and no one's alive. But let's say they do survive. I got the Pistons in 7, but 1-point games. They might only score 75 points too.
I was thinking 80, Tone. 85 tops, and it's gonna be dog fights.
Yeah.
That's what they would be. They would absolutely be dog fights. I'm cool.
Do you agree with Pistons, or are you going?
Yeah, I'm good with that. No problem. No problem on my end with that.
So we're going Pistons in 7. Which I like, and there's a few This is a good early matchup. This could have been a second round matchup. This next one, Bucks and Calves. Let's start with the Bucks because this team is underrated. Sidney Moncrief, Defensive Player of the Year. Ray Allen, up until recently, greatest 3-point shooter of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Oscar Robertson, Mr. Triple-Double.
Mm-hmm.
Giannis Antetokounmpo, 2-time MVP, current world champ, going to be one of the greatest, I guess, power forwards ever by the time it's said and done. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, in his peak, a champion, the number 1 leading scorer of all time in NBA history.
Hold on. Does Jabbar play for the Bucks or he play for the Lakers? Which one?
We've got Jabbar. We got Jabbar on the Bucks.
Okay, so
I think Jabbar has actually made it to both teams, but it's the different, right? It's the Jabbar on the Bucks, different from the Jabbar on the Lakers.
Okay.
So he's later.
He played 14 years with the Lakers.
It's the way that they played with that team at that time. But he was still an MVP. Like you have to put him there
3 times. Yeah, no doubt.
The only one I question, and people don't talk about Big Dog as much as they should. Maybe you want to switch him out, Glenn Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
You okay with Glenn Robinson there?
I got no problem with that. And I'm looking at Ray Allen, and I know Ray is Ray a Buck? Is he a Celtic? Is he
I don't think he's a Celtic, but I'd flip a coin maybe between a Buck and a Sonic. Right. But I think we got. I like him on the Bucks though. I loved watching Ray Allen on the Bucks.
He was better than Paul Pressey. Yes, he was. He was better than Paul Pressey. No doubt about that. So I got no problem with that crew. Yeah, that's a good team. Yeah. That's a real good team.
It's an underrated. That's a great team.
That's a damn good team.
That's a great team. This Cavs team is actually going to have problems, even though they're going to have, obviously your guy. So here we go with the Cavs. Mark Price, underrated. Kyrie Irving, not Kyrie Irving the last 2 games, who looks like the best player in the damn NBA. LeBron James. Which LeBron James do you want to use? Do you want to use the first 7 years or the 4-year?
No, you get the whole one. You get the whole James. You combine them, both of them, Tone.
You just don't get the Heat. You just don't get the Heat James or the Laker James.
No, you don't. Okay. You get the whole dude.
Larry Nance Sr. People don't realize Larry Nance Jr. His dad played and was good. Brad Daugherty, Kevin Love.
Yes, Kevin Love was there. Let's see, he got there in 14, 15. Yeah, 14.
Yeah, he's been there 8 years now. Yeah,
he's been there 8 years. I'm cool with Kevin Love being an all-time great Cav. I'm absolutely cool with it. I think they're gonna retire his jersey too. Let's see.
I don't believe in retiring jersey. Every time you say retired jersey, I'm gonna say I don't believe in retiring jerseys.
I like that 5, Tone, because I'm thinking about the all-time great Cavs, and Craig Elo is out. I was thinking about replacing Kyrie Irving with Ron Harper, but the fact that Kyrie Irving played there longer than Ron Harper, and he did more, he was better. I'm cool with that.
People forget what an offensive player Ron Harper was when he was a Clipper and a Cav, because they see him go to the Bulls, take that kind of 5th option role and focus on defense, and forget. He was a 20-point plus per game guy on both the Clippers and the Cavs.
He was the only player. I think he was the only player in NBA history to average 20 a game and not make the All-Star team in his career.
Yes, I think you're right, actually. All right, so now this is a hard one, because you've got the best player in LeBron James, but I think when you put in Oscar, Moncrief, and Antetokounmpo and Jabbar on a team.
They better, Tone. Absolutely. Because number one, I got my lockdown defender in Moncrief, right? I got my lockdown defender. I got my long ball shooter in Ray Allen. I got and the problem that I'm having, because you know how I feel about Giannis, and I'm still married to James. We have not broken up yet. I'm still married to James, but I love Giannis, but him and James, I think wins that. I think he wins that matchup, but it's not by a lot. So where's the difference going to be? The difference is going to be Brad Daugherty is going to get destroyed by Jabbar.
Oh yeah, 100%.
He's going to get destroyed by Jabbar. No question about that. And on top of that, we ain't just talking about Jabbar offensively. We are talking about an 11-time All-League defender.
People seem to forget about his defense.
So let's make sure we clear that Jabbar wasn't an offensive force. Jabbar locked up too. So, Tone, I think that even though I have a difficult time betting against James, I think that Bucks team gets him in a 7-game series.
Listen, the one thing we know about James as an individual, second to none. But if he has a team that I hate to say this because it's his all-time great team, but when he's going up against like an all-time great lineup, Like there's no weaknesses on that team.
Right. It's different because again, I can look at James and I can go, James can throw this team on his back. James can throw this team on his back. But when he's going up against a team like Milwaukee with Moncrief and Giannis and Ray Allen, I mean, he did beat a 73-9 team. He did do that. Could he beat Milwaukee?
But that 73-9 team, listen, overrated. I'll say it. Overrated.
Could they
overrated.
Beat Milwaukee?
Could it be?
Could they?
Listen,
Milwaukee?
look at the matchups. They lose 4 of the 5 matchups. Let's give James the win. I give him the win at small.
Moncrief was better than Mark Price. Absolutely,
but Moncrief's better than Mark Price. Ray Allen is better than Kyrie.
I think so.
As an overall player, like I get it. People are looking at his handles right now. And they say, "Oh, look at his." Right. Overall, Ray Allen's a better player. And Antetokounmpo is better than Larry Nance, significantly better than Larry Nance, and Kareem is significantly better than Brad Daugherty. So you're losing 4 of the 5 matchups. So unless like even LeBron goes for 50, it's good. I feel it's more like the going up against the 07 Spurs versus going up against the 73-9 Warriors. There's too much stuff coming at him where he can't guard. He can, they say he can guard all 5 positions, not at the same time.
No, he cannot. And Milwaukee got 20 a game coming off the bench from Big Dog.
Yeah. So, man, it's hard to. I hear what you're saying. It's hard to pick against them.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one, man. Because I look at James and there's no real teams that I can put James up and go, these dudes are going to beat them. Because as long as James is there, you got a chance. But this Milwaukee team, wow, Tone. I got to go with Milwaukee. I do. Okay. I look at that group, man. I got to go with them.
I'm looking at team over player, and it's just think about it. Just think about this. As great as LeBron is, second or first all time, Kareem's 3. So it's not like they don't even have that. They have the 3rd greatest player of all time, and more. So yeah, it'll be. Listen, I think he puts on a show. I think he shows us. I think he gives Oscar everything he can handle because Oscar in this lineup is playing the small forward as really a point forward. He's playing really opposite Oscar.
Well, wait a minute, Tom. You got 3 on that Milwaukee Bucks team. You got 3 top 20 players. Giannis just cracked the top 20. So you got Oscar in the top 20. You got Jabbar in the top 5. And you got Giannis. And Giannis, Jabbar, and Oscar. Yeah. Wow.
I didn't realize how good the Bucks team was, to be honest.
They got a good team, yo. They got a good team.
The next round's going to be interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the last matchup. We've got the Orlando Magic and the Chicago Bulls.
You don't even got to run the lineups down. Bulls sweep them.
Hold on. Let me say the lineup.
You can run the lineup all you want. Go ahead. I'm listening. Go ahead.
You got Penny Hardaway.
Nice.
Dennis Scott. Tracy McGrady. Dwight Howard. A very young but athletic Shaq. And Nick Anderson. It's a nice team. It's a nice team. I think that's almost pretty much a team that they had. And it's going up against the Bulls team. And listen, I think we're gonna make some changes to this Bulls team. We're definitely gonna make some changes to this Bulls team. Norm Van Leer, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, Artis Gilmore, Derrick Rose.
I think the Bulls beat them in 5 games. I think they smoked them. I watched the Chicago Bulls sweep the Orlando Magic with a young Shaquille O'Neal, with a young Shaq, and a young Penny Hardaway. I watched them smoke them dudes out the playoffs.
Not only did they have a young Shaq and a Penny Hardaway, they had Horace Grant.
Right, and he ran them. So the dude that's the all-time great on our team, he was on your team, and they smoked him. They ran him right out the playoffs. So now you want to add Tracy McGrady, and you think that's going to be the difference? No. I think they smoked the Orlando Magic in 5 games. Smoked them dudes.
I'll say it goes 6, but I'll go. But the lineups are good, right?
Yes, I'm good with those lineups. Initially I was having a difficult time with Horace Grant and Joakim Noah, but then I'm thinking, no, I can't put Joakim Noah.
And I think the X factor for me, right? I think look, the Bulls starting 5. Look, you got Pippen, Jordan, and Grant.
Right.
I think is handles close, but handles Hardaway, and McGrady. I think they do fine with them. My biggest thing is you got an MVP, the youngest MVP of all time, coming off the bench for the Bulls too. Right. People forget Derrick Rose. Not today, Derrick Rose. That guy, Derrick Rose.
Before he tore his knee up.
Which as good as Nick Anderson was, that I think is the X factor for me. All right. So now we got East 1 done. I'll just recap East 1, West 1s, because now we got the full lineup and tell you who the next matchups are for the East. So the Sixers defeated the Hawks. The Raptors got vetoed in, beating the Knicks by me. The Nets beat the Heat. The Wizards beat the Hornets. The Bulls over the Magic. The Bucks over the Calves. The Pacers over the Pistons. And the Celtics get a bye. So we have round 2 set up. Now we still got to do the bottom half of the West. But let me just tell you, look at some of these matchups for the East in 2 episodes from now. Sixers and Raptors. Okay. Nets and Wizards. Bulls and Bucks. And then Pistons, Celtics. So we got some good matchups. On the West side, the Lakers have the bye.
I got a question, Tone.
They're going to play. Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, so on the West, the Lakers will play the Jazz. The Nuggets will play the Suns. And then we still have round 1, which is Warriors, Clippers, Kings, Grizzlies, Mavericks, Spurs, Pelicans, Rockets.
Tone, are we picking because we getting deep into the playoffs here. Not only are we getting deep into the playoffs, we're going to get to the finals. Are we going to pick a finals MVP?
Of course we're going to pick a finals MVP.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Oh, absolutely.
I just want to make sure.
It's going to be Jerry West on a losing team. Like the first one. All right. So, man, this is...
average 40.
This is bringing back a lot of memories, too. I love that we're doing this. All right. Let's go into this year's playoffs now. And we're going to start... Listen, we're going to start in the East because we're both on the East. So we're going to start in the East. The first matchup, the 1 through 8 matchup, is the Miami Heat against the Atlanta Hawks. And game 1, Trey wasn't Trey. The Hawks looked like a team who had to go through a playoff tournament to get in because they looked a little tired. And Miami Heat looked every bit of that defensive team we thought they were going to be as the number 1 seed. They're up 1-0. Thoughts on that first game and kind of are we going to expect more of the same moving forward, or do you think Atlanta can turn it around?
I was really disappointed in Atlanta, Tone, and the reason why is because I think back to your Lakers in the 2001 NBA Finals. Your boys got 10 days off. Philadelphia beats Milwaukee in Game 7 on a Sunday. They got to turn right back around on Wednesday and play your boys in Game 1. Now, who would you rather fight? Would you rather fight somebody that's been sitting around all day or somebody who just got finished whooping somebody?
Someone who's been sitting around all day?
That's what I would love to do. I would love to fight somebody that's just been sitting around all day because the person who just got finished whooping somebody, he looking at me like, I'll kick your ass too. Absolutely. So this Miami Heat team, they hadn't played in a week. I'm looking at this Atlanta team. I expected them to come out a lot. I expected them to come out sharper than they were. They looked lackluster. They looked slow. Trey, given the effort that he had given, don't get me wrong. I understand that Clint Capella was out of the lineup, but that didn't hamper them in terms of them speeding up the lineup. That in terms of their offense, that didn't hamper any of those things. And for them to come out and give the effort that they gave, they squandered a big opportunity, Tone. I mean, Bam went 1 for 5, 6 points and 5 rebounds. And Tyler Hero, 3 for 11. You can get away with that performance when you're playing against Atlanta when they do that. You're not going to get away with that moving forward. Absolutely not. So when I look at this Atlanta team, they've got to be better. Otherwise, Miami's going to make quick work of them.
Do you think they turn around?
I do. I think that game that they played on Sunday, I think that was a bit of an anomaly. I think that you definitely get a better effort. I don't think Trey's going to shoot 1 for 7 or 1 for 12. I'm sorry. I don't think he's going to shoot 1 for 12 again. Absolutely not. I think he's going to be a better playmaker. I think he's going to be a better scorer. I think that they're going to do a better job, and I think they turn it around. I'm not sure if they beat Miami tonight. I'm not sure if they beat Miami, but I will tell you, I think you're going to get a better effort.
Okay. Sweep? Or you think Atlanta pushes them?
I think that they get a game.
This looks like a sweep.
I think that Atlanta could get a game. I do.
You think they get a game? Okay.
I think they can get a game.
All right. I'll let you talk about this one because I'm just gonna bite my tongue a little bit.
Oh boy.
Sixers, Raptors. Sixers up 2-0. It looks like a 1 versus 8 matchup. If you look at like the box scores, Philly does not look like the team that lost 3 of 4 to the Raptors in the regular season. Maxey, who we've talked about all season long, looks like a superstar, not just a star player right now. And it looks like it's going to be quick work for the Sixers.
I do. I felt like that right from the beginning. And the reason why I felt like that from the beginning, Tone, is because when you get into a playoff series, the game slows down and it's condensed. Now, I can appreciate Nick Nurse complaining about free throws and such, but the other stuff matters. So when you got a guy like Joel Embiid, who you can't just leave Boucher on Embiid by himself, because all Embiid has to do is blow and he'll just fall right over because he's not bigger than a minute, Tone. So what they're doing, they're double teaming and they're triple teaming. And when you're doubling and tripling, a lot of fouls get created, and Embiid has to play through a lot of fouls. Now, he's giving it back also, but he's got to play through a lot of fouls. And I've said this before the series started. The difference in this series is Joel Embiid. Doc Rivers does not have to complicate this thing. He does not have to make this thing more than what it is. You do not have to match wits with Nick Nurse. And simply because I have Hakeem Olajuwon and you don't. That's the difference in this series. Maxey has clearly outplayed Van Fleet. And I think that the thing that that's given him the edge is how he attacks Van Fleet in transition. That's the thing that I think that's the thing that gives him the edge even more. Add that to the fact, and I was really surprised about this, Tone. I was surprised how Tobias Harris basically matches Siakam, because Siakam in the regular season clearly outplayed Tobias Harris in every game that they played. Clearly outplayed him. But we get into the playoffs, and now Tobias Harris is getting open looks. He's getting more action in the half court, right? So in the process of him doing that and getting more action in the half court, he's making Siakam have to guard, which he didn't really have to do that much, as opposed to having to do that now. So I felt like this series was going to be a 5-game series, and I don't feel any different. I don't feel any different at all. I look at this Philadelphia 76ers team. I will tell you this, Tone. I don't like what I'm seeing from James Harden in terms of scoring. I don't like what I'm seeing from him at all. I mean, he's barely shooting. He's shooting over 30% from the floor. He's shooting almost 50% on the long ball. He's missing a lot of wide open stuff. And that stuff you can get away with that stuff now, but when we get into the later rounds, that's going to be a problem. And I've said it before, and I stand on it, that the difference the difference with the Philadelphia 76ers is going to be how far what James Harden can do. Because I've already seen what he's done. Yeah. So he's given me no evidence, Tone, to make me think otherwise with him. So
yeah, to think he's going to step up in the playoffs. So
he's giving me none.
For me, when we had this before the series started, I told you I think the Raptors have a legit shot. In fact, probably could take this series to 7 games. The reason I thought they could take the series to 7 games is I had no faith in James Harden. And what we're seeing from James Harden is exactly what I expected to see from James Harden. I also knew that the Raptors, and specifically Nick Nurse and his defensive sets, has a way of making Joel Embiid's life so difficult. Right? He went 5 for 15 in game 1. Well, that should be a win. Unfortunately, right, he's getting to the line a lot. And that's what's kind of helped saving at least Joel Embiid's game in particular. So my theory was, well, if they can make Embiid's life difficult, which they are, I'm not going to get much out of Harden. Siakam has outplayed Tobias Harris in the 4 games that they played, like you said. Van Fleet always shows up in the playoffs. And then they just need someone like Scotty Barnes, even though he's a rookie, but Scotty Barnes, OG, those guys to really kind of just keep doing what they've been doing. There's a reason they won 3 out of 4 games in the regular season. Unfortunately, I knew he'd play well. I did not expect Maxey's doing what Harden should be doing.
Yes.
That's what Maxey's doing. You mentioned him on the break, but also in the half court. He looks like not 1 step. He looks 4 steps faster than everybody else on that court on both teams. It looks like he takes a step and he's past everybody, and he's knocking down his deep ball. Well, shoot, you have a guy that quick that can get to the rim that easily, also hitting from outside. Well, now you got to play him straight up. You got to be honest. and he's going to kill you. And that's exactly what he's done. Van Vliet has not shot well. I think he shot like 5 of 25. Like, so now you got the guy that you need to rely on, now I'm not making excuses, but Gary Trent has also been sick, and you've seen that in his play. It's not COVID, but I don't know if it's the flu, a cold, whatever. He's been dealing with something like that. Scotty Barnes
did. That actually did happen too, Tony. And that's why he went out. That's why he went out the lineup yesterday. He got COVID.
Yeah. He was questionable yesterday. He played, but then he was. Scotty Barnes then gets hurt. The Raptors get into foul trouble very quickly. For the people that speak French, Boucher. You said a very American Boucher. Boucher fouls out of game 1. Van Vliet fouls out of game 1. So the thing is that when you look at a series, I always say this, when you look at a series that's 4-5, who's got the best player? Well, the Sixers have the best player. So that's who you're going to sway to. I think you're going to see a very different team in game 3 when they come back to Toronto. Hopefully they get healthy. I hate injuries happen, sicknesses, all that kind of stuff happen. But I've always said this. I want everybody to be completely healthy in a series so that we can actually see their best.
Right.
So if I don't know if Barnes is going to be back. He's in a walking boot. So the likelihood that he's back. Now there is a big gap between game 3 and game 4.
Right.
So maybe. I still think the series, I still think they can push it to 6, but I think now my opinion has swayed because of what team I've seen. This is a different Philadelphia team that I've seen these first 2 games. So I think this is now Philly's series. So, hey, they're up 2-0, so they've got control. I think the Raptors have been down 2-0 10 times, and their record is 1-9 in series where they're down 2-0. So now the one series that they did win
one NBA championship
was the Bucks, and on their way to the NBA championship. So there's something to be said there. All right. Speaking of the Bucks, we got the Bucks and Bulls. Milwaukee leads 1-0. Are we going to see the Bulls team from the first half of the season that everybody loved, or is this hey, the Bucks are just the defending champs, they're the better team, that they're taking this?
Well, you just said it, Tone. When you said when you get a 4-5 matchup, what's the difference in the series? The difference in the series is who's got the better player. Well, that's not that much off from a 3-6 series. When I equate it to being in the NCAA tournament, when you get like an 8-9 matchup or you get a 7-10 matchup, it's virtually the same thing where, who's got the better player. Now, when you're in a 1-8 or a 2-7 matchup, that's completely different because there's a lot of disparity there. But when you're in a situation like that, it's a little bit closer. When I look at this Milwaukee team, I just think that they're better all around. They got the better point guard. They got the better bench. They got the better defensive team. When I look at this Chicago Bulls team, I look at a team that's still just trying to hold it together. Add that to the fact, Tone, that you don't have a shot when your 2 best players in Vooch and DeMar DeRozan go 15 for 52.
Yeah.
I mean, DeMar DeRozan goes 2 for 13 in the second half. He made 2 shots in the second half. You don't have a shot when you're going up against Giannis, when you're going up against Drew Holiday and Middleton. You don't have a shot when you're going up against those guys. I thought that they did a good job of trying to get the ball out of Giannis's hands where they were doubling him. Giannis is just so good at playmaking and seeing plays, guys cutting to the basket, and his ability to pass that when you double him, you basically hamper your defense. So you got to double quick. And if you double hard, you got to make sure the guys rotate hard too. And that wasn't what was happening. And he was able to pick them apart. I think that the Bulls, I think they're not shorthanded, but I think they're undermanned. And I think that Milwaukee makes quick work of them. Just like the Toronto Philly series. I think that they make quick work of them.
Do you think now the when we talk about legacy, are we going to look at DeMar? Because we made a lot of excuses when he was in Toronto. And we said, well, he ran into LeBron James and the Cavs. So, people kept saying, well, they were choking. Him and Kyle Lowry couldn't make any shots. But they were going against, LeBron James was making DeMar's life miserable. And that's why he wasn't shooting well. Well, there's no LeBron in this series either. Is DeMar just not a playoff performer? Because some guys step up their game in the playoffs. They average more points. They shoot a better percent. They do. Other guys don't. They take a dip in the playoffs. And in fact, the majority of players, right, if you look at their regular season stats for their playoff stats, the majority of players, their stats go down, like almost all of them. That's why we look at the greats so great, because all of them typically step it up in the playoffs. That's why we talk about Wilt As you know, why are you knocking Wilt? Well, look at his regular season, look at his playoffs. But then Jordan and LeBron, look at their regular season, look at their playoffs. They actually step up their game.
Right.
Is DeMar DeRozan just not that guy?
Well, I think that we look at DeMar DeRozan as something more than what he is. DeMar is an A guy. Let's make sure we're clear on that. I don't think that DeMar is a B guy. I think he's an A guy. But when he has to deal with other A guys who are better, he withers. So having to deal with James, he withered. Having to deal with Giannis, he can't outplay Giannis. There's no way that I think he can outplay Giannis. Now, I watched him outplay Bradley Beal in the playoffs. I watched him outplay other guys in the playoffs who were basically comparable to him. But when he has to deal with guys who are significantly better, when he has to deal with guys who are significantly better than him, I think that we don't recognize that those guys are much better. So we say that DeMar choked, when in reality, it's not necessarily choking more than it is these guys are significantly better.
They're just better, yeah.
Yeah, and again, these guys are significantly better.
And let me be clear. When we say someone's better, or you're right, it's not to say that DeMar's not great. He still is. Like I always get in, we always get into this. If I pick player one over player two, it doesn't mean that player two stinks. It just means I got player one, even by this much, a little bit better than player two. That's all. It's no knock.
Tone, Muhammad Ali was better than Joe Frazier. Was Joe Frazier whack?
Yeah. There you go. Heck, some people tell you Joe Frazier was better. So it's
right.
Yeah. All right. My favorite series of this first round in the East, because this is not your typical 2-7. This is not your typical 2-7. The Celtics and the Nets. Celtics, I thought they were going to lose that first game. I'll be straight up. I thought they were going to lose it, but they came back last second. Jason Tatum. Let me put this out there into the world. Kevin Durant's defense on that last play was atrocious. Atrocious. Your man is Jason Tatum, the best player on the court. And you don't know the basic fundamental of eye on your man, eye on the ball, shame on you. Shame on you. And not enough people are saying this. I don't know if they are. Maybe I missed it. Everyone's making excuses. Shame on me. Now listen, the game was more than one play, but shame on you. Your thoughts on the whole game.
Exactly that, Tone. When I look at this Boston Celtic team coming into this series, and I still stand on it, I have Boston winning it in 6 games. I think that they're better defensively. I saw what Brooklyn did against Cleveland. The great thing about when you get into the playoffs, Thomas, the things that you did against this team, they're not going to work against this team when you're going up against a better team. So you're going up against a better defensive team in Boston. You're going up against a better offensive team with more offensive weapons in Boston. Add that to the fact that they go after you, and they don't go after you in just one area. They go after you in a number of different areas. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant have proven. And Tone, I'm not listening to this anymore about Kevin Durant being an underrated defender. I'm not listening to that anymore. I will not entertain that logic. It's simply because how they went after those two guys in transition. Attack Kyrie Irving in transition because he does not want to cover. Attack Kevin Durant in transition because he does not want to cover. It's almost like having a job, Tone, where I don't work in that department. I work on the fifth floor.
That's not in my job description.
No, I don't work in that department. That's kind of where they strike me. So when I look at this Boston Celtic team, I look at a team defensively that can match what Brooklyn is doing. I'm listening to a lot of people tell me how you can't expect Kevin Durant to go 9 for 24. Well, Tone, we're talking about the best defensive team in the game. So if we got the best defensive team in the game, who better to show that we're the best defensive team in the game than against Kevin Durant? Now, I don't expect them to hold him down, but I thought that they did a good job of keeping the basketball away from him. I thought they did a good job of throwing him off rhythm. And I thought that they did a good job of just dealing with him overall. Now, when I look at this Celtic team offensively, we can't have quarters like in the fourth quarter, Tony. They went almost half the quarter without scoring. That's not going to hold up throughout the course of this series. I'm really interested to see the adjustments that Steve Nash makes because he doesn't really strike me as much of a scheme guy. Tone, he was a part of that 8 seconds or less and that attitude of I think I can hit you, and I can stop you from hitting me. Yep. So I'm interested to see how they're going to adjust defensively to what Boston is doing.
So let me put this out there because this is for Kevin Durant fans who are going to hate me for saying this, but Kevin Durant is not an underrated defender. you overrate his defense because for a couple of years with the Warriors, it looked pretty good. His defense looked pretty good as a Warrior. But that's the only time you can give me a 2 or 3 year stretch out of how many years has he been in the league?
15 years.
50. I was going to say 13, 15 years in the league. And you can give me a 2-3 year stretch where he looked pretty good. No, you're overrating his defense. That being said, what does Kevin Durant do? Score. That's his thing. That's his thing, right? I've asked people, what else does he do great? And people want, the underrated defenders. No, all he does, exceptional, most versatile scorer ever, is score. And if you go 9 of 24 for 21 points, your team's going to lose. The fact that it was a 1-point game is actually congratulations to the Nets, because they should have lost by more if that's what he's going to do. You're a scorer, step up and be a scorer. I want to pause for a sec. Actually, I'll finish and then I'll say something else about Kevin Durant. Williams is set to come back in game 5-2, which is only going to make this tougher if they go to 6-7 games. But Boston's defense just looks superior to the Nets. So again, it was a 1-point game. So let's not knock the Nets completely. They can outscore you. But boy, do the Nets, the Hawks, heck, the Pelicans, all these teams, they look so good in the play-in tournament. And then when they play against the 1-2 seeds, there's a reason they were in the play-in tournaments. They don't look as like Atlanta, won that first play-in tournament game by like 100 points, and it looked like they were dominant, and they looked, and they were dominated in game 1, right? So, all right. So I was going to pause and say something about Kevin Durant. So Kevin Durant recently was on the JJ Riddick podcast, Shooter, whatever. I don't know what the name is of it. It's not Fluent and Chill, so it's not that good. I'm just kidding. It's a good show. And he said he's the only player that teams adjust for. That's why he's never scored 60 points. He says, like, if I do this, teams will adjust. And for other guys who are going off for 50, 60, they just don't. Is that not the most ridiculous lacking of self-awareness that you've ever heard from a player? Even him?
When I first heard that, I thought that he was joking. I honestly thought that he might have joked. I thought it was a joke because I'm immediately thinking to myself about the great scorers, Jordan, James, Bryant, Jabbar. They're double teaming me, so I guess I can't score no more. I'm getting double teamed now. I'm getting triple teamed in the corner, so I guess I can't score anymore. What? The logic is this is what I do, and you try to stop me. Whether you double team me or not, that's not going to matter. You try to go zone, that's not going to matter. Which goes back to what I told you, Tone, that he lets guys off the hook. As a scorer, he lets guys off the hook, and that's why I always felt like that about him.
And that's what I was going to say. It's not that the teams are changing. He changes. He's like, I've got my 40. We're going to win. And he takes the foot off the gas. And let me just, trigger warning for Durant fans here, because people keep saying, he gets double teamed. The defense on him is tighter. Let me give you some stats from NBA.com, our source for stats. He is 6th in the league, tied for 6th in the league for how many double teams he gets, which is, 6th. It means he gets the 6th most double teams in the league. Yeah. You know who he's tied with in terms of how many double teams? I think it's about 15 per game. Do you know who he's tied with?
I'm going to say Devin Booker.
Fred VanVleet.
No. Oh, my God.
And people argue, you're crazy. You're just making up numbers. Go to NBA.com. Check it out yourself. It tells you. Here's the second part. He's tall. He can shoot over people, right? So if you're going to give him a hard time, you probably want to be about, 0 to 2 feet from him, right? To contest his shots. Yeah, he's 10th on his own team. 3.9% of his shots have someone 0 to 2 feet close to him. 10th on his team. Yeah. Now, 2 to 4 feet, he's 65%. He leads his team the most. But if a defender's 2 to 4 feet from you and you're 7 feet, you're shooting over them every time.
That's almost wide open. I'm 2 to 4 feet away from you. That's almost wide open.
I would love to. I play in a men's league now, and I don't get 4 feet of distance.
4 feet? That's wide open.
Because I'm a shooter, right? Let me just another sidebar. I love when I walk onto the court and they're like, "Shooter."
I know what it is.
Ooh, that makes me feel so good. I love it. I would just want to walk off the court and be like, "Yep, I don't want to miss, right? Let me walk off. I'm a shooter." So he's shooting over people. So when people try to make these claims where he's double teamed all the time, And you're like, well, no, he's actually not. Oh, people are right up on him all the time. Well, no, here's the stats. No, he's not. Well, those stats are wrong. You're lying. What is
not just making it up, guys.
Where does that come from? It's just that fandom, man. Okay. So, trigger warning taken down. We're going to move to the West. This is going to be a sweep. If there's ever a series that's going to be a sweep, Phoenix and the Pelicans.
They just looked overmatched, Tom, to be honest with you. And what the plan was with Willie Green was to make Chris Paul a scorer. And Chris Paul said, fine, I'll absolutely do that. No problem. You want me to score? You don't think that I can score consistently? Then I will. Absolutely. When I look at New Orleans, they just look overmatched. CJ McCollum is what he reminds me of in terms of being a professional. He reminds me of Joe Dumars. He comes and he just gets his game. He just gets his job done. I'm a pro. I do what I do. Same thing with Brandon Ingram. I'm a professional scorer. This is what I do. But when I look at that unit overall, I look at Phoenix might be they are the most complete team in the Western Conference. But with that also being said, New Orleans is overmatched. And I keep hearing from people telling me, they're turning this thing around in New Orleans. Valanciunas is wasting away in New Orleans. I want him out of there, and I want him on a team where he could really help them. 18, I'm thinking about Valanciunas in Utah. I'm thinking about Valanciunas in Charlotte. That's what I'm thinking. 18 and 12 with a guy like that, he can help.
You know who could really use a guy like Valanciunas?
Toronto.
How
about that? Toronto, absolutely, they can.
That had him.
So. Yeah, I just think that they're overmatched. I don't think they're undermanned. I think that they're overmatched. I think this Phoenix team is they're the best coached team in the game, and they got one of the best transition teams in the game. And I just look at this Phoenix team, and I don't see how New Orleans can get a game. I would be surprised if they got a game. I think this series goes 4.
You're one of, if not the best coached teams in the league. You've got the most important, I'm not saying the best, the most important point guard in the league.
Mm-hmm.
You've got one of the best scorers in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept pushing. What did I keep saying about Ayton? He needs to step up. He's playing better. And so it's going to be tough for any team, let alone the Pelicans, to beat Phoenix. I'm still waiting for that return of Zion. I don't know. Maybe he's just going to be their halftime entertainment, throwing down dunks and stuff. I don't know.
Why is he not playing, Tone? What is the problem?
They want to get as much as they can in a trade for him.
But right, so you're not helping me when you're showing me that this dude is doing one-step windmill dunks. Look,
he's healthy. He's got his hops back. You saw what he did in the games that he played, so he's an all NBA talent.
26 and 6 last year, shooting over 60% from the floor. Yeah. Why is this dude not in the lineup? I'm all ears.
Because they're waiting for the offseason to trade him. I'm telling you, they're just going to try and get a haul. They're scared he's going to get hurt or he might not play well. It's the playoffs, etc. He's rusty. Listen, I don't agree with it, but that's the only reason I can come up with.
Yeah.
Dallas, Utah, tied 1-1, which is just a shock considering. Is this series going to go 7?
I don't know if it's going to go 7, Tone, but what I don't like is the same thing that you told me about James Harden. I don't like what I'm seeing from Donovan Mitchell. 23 for 59 from the floor. He went 10 for 30. I think he went 10 for 29 in game 1, 13 for 30 last night. Now, I know that Rudy Gobert is not the guy that Joel Embiid is, that Cat is, that Embiid, Joker is. I know he's not those guys where you just come in and throw it to them on the box. Tone, I got a guy who leads the league in field goal percentage. He shoots 70% from the floor. In these 2 games, he's taken 6 shots total, including in game 1, he took 1 shot. That's coaching. How is my big man not involved in the offense at all? Not even a little bit. I can appreciate if he's getting doubled, but they're not even looking for him at all in the offense. And because they're not looking for him, they're not getting anything from him offensively. And it makes him look like he's completely ineffective when that's just not true. And I think that we're leaving out the fact that, Mike Conley in game 1. So we're just going to forget about the fact that he had 0 points, I think 3 assists and 3 fouls, and he didn't give them anything. He didn't give them anything yesterday.
Is he done? Is Conley done?
I'm not going to say done, Tone, but it's looking like we're on the other side.
At least as a starter on a championship contender team. How about that?
I will tell you that he's looking like we're on the other side of what he used to be, and we're looking, and not just on the other side of it, we're almost at the end of what he used to be. Because when I get nothing from him in a playoff game, I'm not saying, Tone, when he's ineffective. I'm talking about completely ineffective. When I get nothing from him, then I got to start thinking about what is the problem with him and what's the problem with their offense. That's the difference in what's going on.
That's a lot. That's I'll go back to your first point, and you've been saying coaching is the problem in Utah since the beginning of the season. I said it with Frank Vogel with the Lakers. I said the fact that he's not getting AD when he's healthy, easy buckets, getting him some easy, some open looks. That's coaching. The same thing with Gobert. You got to figure it out. You got to get him, and this, especially great defensive players. If you get them some easy buckets, some quick dunks, some open looks, what do they end up doing? They play better on defense as well. Not that he's played poorly on defense, but that's part of the game. And I think, really, who's their second scorer? Behind Mitchell. So if Mitchell has a bad game, who's their second scorer?
Bogdanovich is their second guy, and I mean they've gotten some really good production out of him. I mean, he was 25.
But I mean, you need to get those. That's another shooter, right? You need some of those easy buckets on the inside and transition, etc. And they're not doing it. So the fact that Dallas has kind of weathered the storm. Do you still have Utah winning this, or do you think?
I do. I still have Utah winning this series. What I screwed up with was I thought that they were in a different bracket because I had them going to the Western Conference Finals after what happened with Luka.
You forgot they're playing Phoenix?
Yeah, I thought they was in the same bracket with Minnesota and Memphis. So I gotta completely scratch that because I don't think that they're going to beat Phoenix. No, I do not think that. But I do think that they can still beat Dallas because when I look at Dallas, I mean, Jalen Brunson looks like a pro, man. He looks like a guy. People discount how difficult it is to cover a left-hander, how crafty he is, right? How well he plays off the pick and roll and how he goes downhill. He's looking at Conley like, I am going after him. He goes after Conley. He goes after Clarkson, and he doesn't make any bones about it. He goes after those guys, and he's really effective. We're talking about a Dallas team yesterday. We're talking about a Dallas team, Tone, that Clever, I believe his name is Clever. He had 17 uncontested long balls. Uncontested. If you're just going to let a guy shoot the basketball, now I understand why they did that. I mean, he was coming into this series in one of the worst slumps that he's had in his career. But it does make sense. But we have to have some sort of hand in his face. Some sort of hand. We can't just let you just shoot open shots all night long, especially after you make 2 or 3. We got to get somebody over there. Well, that wasn't the case a couple nights ago because when I'm watching this Dallas team, they're getting a bunch of open looks from the 3. They're getting a bunch of open looks in the mid-range, and Rudy can't cover everybody. He can't do that. So
you don't think Luka can come back and win 3 out of 5 against Utah?
I don't. I would be surprised if he did that. I would be really surprised. Coming off an injury and not playing in 2 games and then just come back and just be super sharp. I would be surprised if he did that. I would be really surprised if he did that.
I don't have an answer for that. Is there something else I can help?
Hey Siri, how you doing?
No, Siri. I wasn't even talking to you.
Siri, I was gonna ask Siri a question about Luka, but okay.
Siri, I was not talking. I'm talking to Tone. Why are you involved in this, Siri? Why?
Well, now mine's jumping on and wants to say hello. I feel like we should turn them off when we're going. All right. Yeah, I'm leaving that in, by the way. This is for those. This is not getting edited out. The next series we got is Golden State, Denver. Golden State up 2-0. Curry's starting to look like he's back, especially yesterday, driving to the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
What? Who? What?
Well, that's always been in this game, Tone. It has. That's always been in Curry's game.
When we think of his highlights, it's typically him shooting a logo 3. It's not going through 3 defenders and scooping up a layup. Mm-hmm. Is this series done, right?
I think Denver can get a game, but I think that the game plan with Golden State, the game plan was simple with them. We're going to jump Joker, and the rest of you dudes are going to have to beat us. And not only are you going to have to beat us offensively, you're going to have to guard too, and you can't do both. We don't think that you can do both.
Denver has one guy. Let's be honest, right? With Jamal Murray out.
Mm-hmm.
Denver has one guy. Jump him. If the other guys are going to beat us, good luck. That's the philosophy.
Yeah.
But I also look at this team that, Steph now, like I said, is starting to look like Steph. Clay is looking like Clay. Jordan Poole looks like Steph Light. And Draymond just doing Draymond. They're going to be a tough out for anybody. And I don't think Denver has the firepower to do that. I want to ask you one thing. Jokic took exception to getting a little slap on the behind last night. Overreaction or?
Well, Tone, remember, they were getting it put to them pretty good.
I know.
I don't think that wouldn't have been a problem if they were up 5 points. That would not have been a problem. But the fact that they were getting it put to them, you get a little more sensitive about things when you're getting your backside kicked in. Absolutely. So absolutely.
Did you like that Steph stepped in and held him back?
Right. Hey, Steph, come on, man.
Be careful. Listen, Steph pushing up on Jokic. Be careful you don't hurt your shooting arm. I remember a line from Bull Durham. Nuke Lelouch was the pitcher, played by Tim Robbins, and he gets into a bar fight with Kevin Costner. And as Kevin Costner's laying on the ground after he punches him and knocks him down, he said, "What hand did you punch me with?" He's like, "I don't know." He goes, "Left or your right? What hand did you punch me with?" He goes, "I don't know." He goes, "Listen, if you're ever in a bar fight and you hit some dumb drunk, you hit him with your left hand because your right hand's your moneymaker. That's your pitching arm.
There you go.
You hit him with your left."
There you go. Absolutely.
So that's what I'm telling Steph. Hey, push him off with the left. Leave that right hand back. All right, last one. My team looked not well. It's not that my team didn't look great. It's that Minnesota looked good. Memphis down 1-0 to the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are probably one of the best 7 seeds we've seen in a long time, talent-wise at least. Anthony Edwards. I'm going back to my Kentucky days. Anthony Edwards looks fantastic. Cat looked terrible in the play-in game. Looked like a different guy here. Is Memphis in trouble?
Yes, they are, and they're in a lot of trouble. I thought that this series was going to be a lot more competitive than what people thought. Everybody was buying into the hype of Memphis we want all the smoke, when in reality, this is a bad matchup for them. Like I just told you about Boston being the best defensive team in the game, and who better to show it against than against Kevin Durant and against Kyrie Irving. Well, Jaren Jackson was up for Defensive Player of the Year. Well, you're one of the better defenders in the game. Well, who better to show it against than Cat? Well, I'll tell you what, Cat's game, which we've all recognized, which I've recognized, is Cat's game is outside in. And what he does is when he drags Steven Adams, when he drags Jaren Jackson away from the bucket, that hampers them because now they don't have that rim protection. Now they don't have that rebounder in there when he's stretching the defense like that. And that just opens up Minnesota's offense. Now, I can't say enough about what Malik Beasley did coming off the bench, giving them the minutes that he gave them in Minnesota. He gave them some really good minutes.
And
this series is going to be a lot more competitive simply because I look at this Minnesota team, and one thing that they were missing in the past, they now have it, which is D'Angelo Russell. They didn't have that playmaker. They didn't have the guy who could stretch the floor. They didn't have that guy who could score the basketball, who could match other teams at the point guard spot. Well, now they have that. And because they have that now, that makes them a lot more viable than they were in the past. And I had Memphis in 6, but I think this series could go 7 and Minnesota can win this thing.
I hate to say it because I had Minnesota going to the Western Conference Finals. Heck, maybe in the finals. I don't know that that's going to happen anymore. Although this is probably their worst matchup, to your point. D'Angelo, we forgot. I think we'd looked at all the off the court stuff, and I think we forgot how talented of a player D'Angelo Russell could be. And now he's starting to show. Look, some players just take a few years, right? If I showed you Kyle Lowry in Memphis, people forget he was a Grizzly in Memphis and in Houston. Very different player who he turned out to be in Toronto. Some players just need that time to develop who they are, and I think that might be Russell. And also that off-court stuff, I think, slowed down his development because he was focused on that stuff too. So it'd be a tough matchup. If you had to make a pick, Memphis.
I'm still sticking with Memphis, but this series is going to be a lot more competitive than what people think. A lot more.
All right. You know what it's time for now? And we're gonna start with a pretty good. I'm pulling up. I want to do the boring stuff first. when I say, because let me ask the question. I'll give you the boring stuff, and then we can have the conversation. With all this talk about, top 75 players of all time, the question came in: can you guys, that's us, do a comparison of Larry Bird versus Magic Johnson?
Sure.
And sure we can. So let me give you the boring stuff. Okay. We got Larry with 3 rings, Magic with 5. They both played 13 seasons, although Larry's last few were injured with his back. Magic Johnson obviously had to retire because he was HIV positive and then came back. So it was kind of broken up 13 seasons, but both played 13 seasons. Bird in the playoffs, 12 years. Magic in the playoffs, 13. So literally every year. All-Stars, both of them, 12-time All-Stars out of those 13 years. Season MVPs are tied at 3. Finals MVPs, Larry 2, Magic 3. All NBA first team, 9-9. Just to show you how close these two guys are, right? All NBA team selections, 10-10. All defense, Larry 3-0. Assist leader, Magic 4-0. Steals leader, Magic 2-0. Rookie of the year, Bird got Rookie of the Year, but
yes, he did.
And then we're talking for Bird, 24, 10, and 6. Magic, 27 and 11. On both about 5. Bird, Magic, the shooting. Who I don't think we need the percentages in that. Okay, so there's kind of the tail of the tape. An interesting side note, I guess, would be that Magic was the first overall pick in the 79-80 draft to the Lakers, but that's only because Larry Bird was actually drafted the year before on a loophole that the Celtics figured out because he transferred from Indiana to Indiana State. They drafted him 6th, even though he was then playing another year of college and then was also a rookie in 79-80. So weird kind of, you read Arbach, wherever you want to rank him in terms of coaches, one of the smartest minds in the game to understand that rule and pick up Larry Bird way, what the way he should have done. The fact that Bird slipped to 6th in that 78-79 draft because he was going to play back college. It wasn't, excuse me. So, okay. So all that said, Magic versus Bird. Let's start with the high level stuff because there's listen, we could do a whole series of hour-long shows on Magic versus Bird, but kind of high level, how you kind of compare the two coming into the league.
Well, they both, I think Bird's situation was a little bit different than Magic. Magic got on a crew that was already, he was the difference in what they were doing. The Celtics was trash when Bird got on that team. They had won 22 games the year before.
I think 22 or 24 games. Yeah, people forget that.
They were whacked when Bird first got there. When Bird gets there, he completely turns that thing around. It's first team All-NBA right from the beginning. They're building that thing around him, right? So not only are they building that thing around him, he's building his game up, and he's getting better every year, as opposed to Magic is getting better, but he doesn't have to get that much better considering what that unit is that he's on. He doesn't really have to do that much. I got Jabbar, I got Norm Nixon, right? I got Jamal Wilkes on my team. So there's not really much that I have to do, as opposed to they're basically starting from the ground up in Boston. Now, I think Bird was better initially, but what happened was with Bird getting better, and the 84 finals is where the scale tipped. And the reason why the 84 finals was where the scale tipped was because it became evident that Bird is better than you. And it's not a question. So Magic knew that in order for me to be talked about like this, I got to go work on my game. Because not only do we lose to the Boston Celtics, right? Not only do we lose to them, but when you start talking about the better players in the game, don't bring my name up because I'm not even close to that good. I'm not even close to as good as that guy. I'm sure that drove him nuts. So now I got to go work on my game and I got to get better because you're not going to talk about me like that. So Magic became a better mid-range shooter. Magic became a better passer. Magic got smarter, right? Magic got himself in better shape.
Clear, 84, that was the tragic Magic.
That was tragic Magic, absolutely.
Where he was making mental errors, right?
He got smarter. He got better as a passer. He got better as a playmaker because Magic knew that in order for us to win, I got to get better. And there is no other team in the East that we're going to have to deal with except for the Boston Celtics. So I got to match him.
Maybe the Sixers.
Yeah, we deal with the Sixers, but they were getting old at that point. Yeah. So I'm looking at this. We all knew that it was Larry and Magic Johnson.
Yeah,
and Magic knew that he had to get better. And Bird was better for a long time, and then Magic surpassed him. Around 86, 87 was when Magic surpassed Bird.
And it's interesting. And it's interesting because even though Magic wins the college matchup in their rookie season, Magic is the one that goes to the finals and wins. And you know, but people are still talking that Bird is the better player between the two of them. You know, then Bird gets some help in terms of Mchale and other pieces on that Celtics team, and that's when they start their kind of run.
The only doubts on the next year, the Magic wins it, then Bird wins it the next year.
And then, well, that's why I said the next year they get Mchale, and that's when Bird, and that's why I said Bird goes on his run. That's when Bird wins. But the other thing, it's interesting. We forget Bird, at least. I'm not making an excuse for either player. Bird had some consistency in terms of, hey, here's a coach who's an all-time great coach, right? And then he's going to bring in pieces and build a team. You had faith in that. The Lakers bring in Magic. Heck, one coach wants to make him a power forward. The other coach says, hey, I want him to be the starting point guard, but we have Norm Nixon. He's our starting point guard. It's a new owner. In his first, I want to say 3 or 4 seasons, he goes through 3 different coaches. So he starts with Jack McKiskey, who has a tragic accident, and then it's Paul Westhead, and then it's Pat Riley, and then Pat Riley. Okay, now Pat Riley is the one that kind of is there for I think 8 or 9, 10 years, whatever. But I mean, there is turmoil. The fact that they won in his rookie season with everything that was going on, people forget 2 coaches in his rookie season. They didn't necessarily want to give over the keys to the kingdom to this rookie 6'9" point guard. And we forget it. It's not like today where if a 6'9", 6'8" guy comes in and says, hey, I got the skills of a point guard, I'm going to be the point guard. They were like, no, you're 6'9", get in the post. Yes. That's your job. So he did deal with some of that, but he has kind of that early success in terms of team victories, but everyone is saying Bird is better.
Yep.
Bird then goes on to win a couple of three MVPs back to back
in a row.
And so what did you see? What do you see when people think of Bird? I think the sad part is they see highlights from the 92 Dream Team. And they see a guy who's, playing on a broken back, who's laying on his stomach, during timeouts to try and ease the pain of his back, who's very stiff. He's more athletic than people give him credit for. He's a much better passer than people give him credit for. Very smart player, obviously a great shooter. I always tell people the fact that people compare Bird and Durant a lot, and I say and they talk about who's the better 3-point shooter, and I said, well, the way I compare it is Bird came into a league in his rookie season was the first year that the NBA had a 3-point line, so he didn't have a 3-point line prior to that. The gap between what he did in terms of 3-point shooting and his contemporaries, his peers, versus the gap versus Durant and his, like they're both above average, but I mean the gap was significantly better. What else did you see in Bird's game that maybe people don't talk enough about? Well, I skipped defense too, by the way. But
I was getting ready. The most important thing that I saw was how smart Bird was. That was the thing that I saw when I was a kid watching Bird. I didn't think much of him athletically. He did look like he wasn't as fast, or he didn't jump as high. Even though Bird would throw it on you. Bird would run right down the gut, and he would throw it on you. Absolutely. But what I did notice as I got older, and I was watching the game and studying the game, how smart Bird was to make the right play and to get the ball to the right people at the right time. Bird was one of the few guys that I remember being as a kid that big who could pass like that. I hadn't seen anybody at that height when I was a kid that could pass like that, as opposed to Magic.
Right. Let's not forget he was 6'10", maybe more.
Bird a bit of 6'9". Bird a bit of 6'9", and his ability to pass, the way he was able to pass, was something that wasn't seen before, especially at that size. And what we also left out is how great he was at doing everything that guys his size did. I mean, Bird is a double-figure rebounder. That was his job. Bird was a double-figure rebounder, and Bird was very much a dirty work guy. A lot of people leave out how much of a dirty work guy he was. He wasn't just a scorer. Yeah. And
he was diving on the floor. He was boxing out. He was
absolutely. And this is why I put Bird where I put him, simply because of how great he was all around. I mean, Bird was an all-league defender. Bird wasn't just a good defender. Bird was an all-league defender. I think he was more of a great team defender. He was a good individual defender, but he was an even better team defender. So Bird, I saw a lot of different things from Bird, man. Bird was absolutely awesome. A guy who could score on anybody, a guy who could defend. He wouldn't back down from anybody, and he was perfect for what they were doing during that time.
Maybe the greatest trash talker of all time. Like, he's in that conversation. Like him, he would do stuff again, and maybe that goes back to the cerebral part of it, where he would tell you, hey, I'm going to fake left, go right, 12-foot jumper, and then do it. What
solidifies it for me with Bird is I was a kid, and even today, Dr. J is the classiest guy in the history of the game. I would love to know what Bird said to him. What made Doc punch him in the face? What is the equivalent to? I tell people, Tone, it's the equivalent to LeBron James punching Luka in the face. If you saw LeBron James punch Luka in the face, you'd be like, what? What did Luka say to him to make him punch him in the face?
I would expect to see LeBron punch Luka before I would have expected Dr. J to punch anybody.
Right.
But I hear what you're saying. Yeah, that was it. Like, hey, he won a 3-point shootout with, like, he kept his warm up on. He's like, hey, who's coming in second?
He didn't take his warm up off. Come on, man, stop playing.
Who's coming in second?
He walked in there like, man, what you dudes ain't got nothing for me.
I love that about him. So
yes.
Okay, so let's talk about my guy. And listen, I love Magic. Magic is like, I started watching basketball Magic's rookie season, right? I became a Laker fan, and Magic was my favorite player. Like, for honestly, until Kobe came in, and I was like, I'm hurt, I can't play basketball anymore. My Lakers team just drafted this guy out of high school. I'm going to live vicariously through him. Until that moment happened, I was a Magic guy. Magic comes into the league. I feel like nobody liked him. I feel like no one wanted him to succeed. I feel like but he got thrown onto a team. Now listen, maybe it's because now I'm watching the rise of the Lakers, or on HBO, that I'm reminded of some of the stuff. Or let's be honest, I was a kid. Maybe I just didn't know some of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes. People just think he was Magic, but he wasn't. He was from Lansing, Michigan. He wasn't this Hollywood guy.
Country bumpkin. That's what he was.
He's probably closer to Bird than he was to
yeah, he was. He was cool. We talking about a dude who got onto the Los Angeles Lakers. He was 19 years old. He got drafted. So I mean, he just turned 20 that year. So we talking about if you can remember being 20 years old and having to move to Los Angeles and have to play for the Los Angeles Lakers,
I would have loved it.
In that environment, there's no way
I would have gotten a lot of trouble, but I would have loved.
Oh my God, I'm certain that I wouldn't have lasted. And for Magic to do what he did and how he revolutionized the game, Tone, where now he makes it okay for the big guard to be a guard, for the big guy to be a guard. That wasn't something that was customary back then. If you were 6'9", you played on the box. If you were 6'9", you were a dirty work guy. You were a big guy. Big guys did not handle the basketball, and I haven't seen anybody. I hear people talk all the time about, we've seen Magic Johnson today. Not really, because I see guys today. Magic revolutionized the game, and we got a lot of guys today in the game who aren't in the game today if it wasn't for Magic Johnson. We got a lot of guys, Penny Hardaway, LeBron James, and the only guy comparable to him would be LeBron James. He's the only guy. And since he retired in 30 years, there hasn't been anybody that I can really compare Magic to, except for LeBron James. Other than that, I haven't seen anybody.
Now, and just think about this: LeBron James averages like 4 or 5 less assists per game.
Right.
Now, they play different, but I know in the sense that here's a big guy who can run the point, who can distribute.
Right.
The thing, I always say this. Anytime someone says Curry revolutionized the game, I always bring this up, and I'm going to do the same thing for Magic. And I say Curry was fortunate that they went from Mark Jackson to Steve Kerr, because you see his 3-point attempts go from 7 to 12, 15. And part of that was there was a coach who allowed him to be him. And that's where we really see the great success. Now, you have to have the ability to do it, right? Just because they put me on the court doesn't mean I can, shoot 23s a game and we're going to be good.
Right.
I'll try.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. But, you need to have the ability to do it.
Right.
Magic was put in a position where Jerry West wanted to put him in the box. That's exactly what that's what he was going to plan to do, was put him at the power forward and help Kareem get some of those rebounds and do the dirty work. That's what Magic, that's what he was set to do.
Right.
Things happen. They bring in McKiskey from Portland, who's an assistant in Portland, who wants to run this Showtime kind of fast-paced. That's not what they called it at the time, but run this fast-paced offense and put him in the backcourt with Norm Nixon versus one or the other, and allows him to, hey, go, run, throw these crazy passes, do it. Now he has the ability to do it, and I think that really set the tone. So I know the question really was going to be, let's talk about Magic and Bird, and we did. I'm assuming part of that is who you got.
Magic is my guy. And the reason why is, like I said, he became better simply because of what the standard that Bird set. He became better. He became better as an all-around player. He became better in the playoffs. And Bird started to break down before Magic did. And Magic was just so smooth, and he was just so much more cerebral as he advanced. And Magic is my guy ahead of Bird.
Listen, I'm also a Laker fan, so I understand that I'm biased, and I told you already, Magic was my guy. Excuse me. So I've got Magic. It's close though. Like if you have Bird over Magic, I get it. If you say peak Bird over peak Magic, I think you could flip a coin and go either way. But for me, yeah, I got Magic over Bird. But I
got Magic at 6 and I got Bird at 7. It's not like I got Magic at 6 and Bird at 9. No, I got them right behind each other. So I got
Magic at 4 and I got Bird at 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I shoved my favorite player of all time in between the two of them. So
of course.
Mm-hmm. That's how it is. All right, last question. I like this one. If teams in the 90's let players shoot threes like they do today, who would have been the first Steph Curry?
Who would have been the first Steph Curry? Well, I mean, Dale Ellis was one of the better long ball shooters in the game back then. He was awesome. His ability to just crack the long ball. Reggie Miller didn't show up till the late 80s. He showed up in 87. So
90.
Oh, so you're talking about the 90s.
90s, yeah.
Right. If you're talking about the 90s, who would have been the first Steph Curry? That's a good one. Probably Reggie Miller, Tone. I think it would have been, because Steph Curry didn't turn into Steph Curry until Mark Jackson left, and this was like year 4. So Reggie Miller, that would be around 91, 92. So Reggie Miller would have been that guy who all we doing is we just running offense, and we're running offense for you, and our offense is going to be predicated on just shooting the long ball. That's all we're going to do. So one of the first guys, if I think about it today, him, it wouldn't be Mark Price. Maybe Mark Price, but Mark Price wasn't as good with the ball as Steph Curry. But he did shoot the long ball, no doubt about that. When you think about the great long ball shooters, yeah, Reggie Miller would probably be the first Steph Curry.
I went in a different direction, or I'm going to go in a different direction, or I did go in a different direction. Obviously, I saw this question. I look at the other things that they do. Like, and this is no disrespect to Reggie Miller. Reggie Miller's a great 3-point shooter, but I make Reggie more of a Clay than a Steph.
Mm-hmm.
Right, coming off screens, shooting the 3.
Right.
So I want to look at, well, who do I think could like handle the ball? Who do I think can move off the ball? Who do I think could get to the hoop too? Right.
Right.
And okay, Ray Allen, of course, that's the easy one. But again, I think he gets drafted in 96, 97, so he's later on.
Right.
Drazen Petrovic was the first name that comes to mind, but I think, unfortunately, like we had to see more of him. Unfortunately, he tragically died. But 2 names come to mind. One, and I've talked about him a lot on this show, is Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf.
Yeah.
I think is one who had the ball handling skills, was the guard, who could move off the ball, who was quick, and could shoot threes. And if he had more opportunities to, I think he shoots more.
Mm-hmm.
But the other one that I think, and look, there's a lot of great 3-point shooters, because people are saying Steve Kerr, Glenn Rice, like there's, I think Mitch Richmond. Mitch Richmond, you give him 15 threes a game, because he's already averaging 20 plus points a game as is.
Yeah, it was 26.
You give him another 10 threes. That's a 30-point a game guy, no?
Yeah, you can, but Mitch Richmond was more of a power guard. He wasn't the ball handler.
Yeah, I don't think Steph Curry's a good ball, but I don't think he's a primary ball handler either. I think that's the guy that I thought more of. I would go
with Mahmoud more than anybody.
Yeah, he's my first choice. My first choice.
I would go with him. If I'm taking anybody off the list, I'll take Reggie Miller off, and Mahmoud is definitely the guy that I would go with. No doubt about that. He would be, especially if he was able to play like that from back then. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
that's what I'm saying. You're letting him play that way and shoot all those threes. Oh my God, yeah. And I think a lot of times, I know a lot of people in the comments will probably be like, it's gonna, they'll say Steve Kerr because he has the highest 3-point shooting percentage. They'll say Del Curry, right, who's Steph's dad. But I'm trying to think of who's a guy that's as shifty as well. Like, does the other things, because I think there's a lot of guys who, if they had 15 threes a game, again, I think there's more guys that could be Clay than could be Steph. So I think he's the guy that would have been like, wow.
I could get with that. Sure.
Right.
I'll take Reggie Miller off and go with Mahmoud. Yeah, I can definitely get with that.
There's the consent. Is there anybody else? Did I miss anybody?
No. I was thinking when I thought about the 80s, I immediately thought about Dale Ellis. But when I think about the 90s, Mahmoud Abdul, I completely forgot about him. Absolutely.
Okay, 80s. Okay, let's add to it, and then we'll say good day.
I just think about Dale Ellis. That's the guy that I think about more than anybody. Just the guy who Dale Ellis could shoot the basketball, but Dale Ellis was buckets. But Dale Ellis had a 5-year stretch where he was 25 a game. So if you want to add 6-7 more threes to Dale Ellis's game, Dale Ellis is 30 a night. No doubt about that.
What about a guy who I think, this is way out of left field, but his name just popped into my head? Dana Barrows. Do you think he could be a 25, 30-point guy if he was getting to jack up that many threes?
Nah, because I don't think he was as well. When I think about him, he's a lot smaller, and his ability to create space wasn't like that. Not like it wasn't nearly as good as Mahmoud, bro, or Dale Ellis. His ability to create space, no, I don't think so.
I feel like I'm remembering certain games. What anybody else? Like, what about who's my guy on the Lakers? Eddie Jones.
None, because Eddie wasn't a long ball shooter. Eddie could shoot the long ball, but Eddie was more of a transition guy.
Well, none of them are really long ball shooters, right? That's so the I guess the question is if they grew up shooting the three.
Right.
And we're given the green light to just go.
Right.
I'm trying to think of, and I know that wasn't an 80s guy, but I'm trying to think of 80s guys, and not a lot of them are coming to mind, but again, it's because they played a different way, right?
Dale Ellis is the only guy that I can think about. Him and Bird, but Bird shot the three, only 3 of them, but Dale Ellis is the only guy that comes to mind. When I think about Eddie Jones, he's more of a Mchale Bridges. That's what I think about when I think about Eddie Jones.
Yeah, you've made that comparison for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's it for Fluent and Chill. We'll be back on Friday. We got big news coming, but we're going to save that for another episode. On the next one, we're going to have a new conspiracy. I got a good one. We're going to keep talking about NBA playoffs, obviously. And you don't know this yet. This is going to be a surprise to you. I don't even know why I want to do this, but we're going to do it. Neither one of us. Like, if you had to rate your NHL, your hockey knowledge from 0 to 10, what would it be?
Like a 3.
Well, that's not bad. I'd probably give myself a 4 or 5. So we've been challenged to pick our NHL playoffs. Who's going to win? So we're going to run down the playoffs, and we're going to make our. Listen, the teams. I always tell people this. I had my mom fill out 1 week my NFL picks. I was in Cancun. I was young. I was in Cancun having a good time. And this is how long ago it was. You had to mark it on the piece of paper and fax it. Okay. And so I was like, hey, just do it for me. She got, I want to say there was 14 games that week. She got 12 out of 14. And I said, how the hell did you, and her logic was this, well, I feel like, I'm just making up because I don't remember specifics, but she goes, well, I feel like a falcon is faster than an eagle, so I picked the Falcon.
Of course.
And the Atlanta stunk at that time, and Philly was actually the better team, but Atlanta goes and wins the game. I've heard, because you're a Bears fan, I heard of the Bears, and I picked the Bears over a team. Back then they were actually pretty good. And a couple of them, she's like, well, I just heard of this team. I never heard of that team, so I clicked it. I didn't even know, what the heck is I think she said, what is I don't know what a C or bill is. So I didn't the Bills. What's that? She didn't that. Didn't even know. So I just picked the other team because I didn't know what it was. 12 out of 14. So I feel like we might actually be pretty good. We might be pretty good at this. So we're going to do that on Friday, make our NHL picks. If you have any other challenges for us, please send them through, because I love doing stuff that's out of our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So we'll do that next time. But until then,
Take it light, but take it.